I'm trying a different format here. I've done a ton of Auburn basketball content. Does not do well on the channel, but I do it because it's me. I do it for me only, actually. But I do hope you people enjoy as well. Because I like for guys to understand that I know basketball, and I want you guys to learn some basketball too. No, I'm just being an asshole. But so it's effectively what we have here is I'm going to list out the things that I think portend for the future. I'm not even gonna try to do a whole recap. Just off the top of my head, no statistics, no nothing. Just watch the game. So, number one thing, and portend means like things you can kind of project out for the future, right? Like you can port. I was about to say something political. I almost said something political. So portend, right, for the future. So, number one, I think Denver Jones will get probably even more time at the one against good teams with good ball handlers um, than JP at a certain point. But I do also think Pettiford will be effectively starting at a certain point as well. It's a three-pronged thing, I guess, in that sense, because Pegues, he got the offense going right. He did what I think you needed out of him, which is just initiate the offense and be able to like make open shots. Like he did that. I don't know his percentages, but I'd probably ballpark that he was like 2 or 3 or 2 or 4 from three. Which, if you could have got that out of your point guards last year, you'd fucking over the moon. Um, he's not a good defender. He is small. He did go get like a hustle rebound putback. And I mean he plays off the ball. He's an on off ball guy. He can do a lot of things and offer a lot of things. I'm not saying you should like shelve this guy. It's just that for Bruce Pearl particularly, especially with the wealth of options that he has, I can definitely see a world where Pettiford gets the starting like nod at some point, and then Denver is still the number 2 point guard, or even Denver sometimes starts at as the one, or at least he defends the ones, because it really doesn't matter. Like you could have Denver be the shooting guard, but like he defends the point guards when you put Pettiford or Pegues on the off ball guy. The problem is that like they made like a habit of attacking Pegues. Like in the beginning of this game, really the first like 10 minutes or so, almost all their actions like involve like top of the key matchups against like Pegues or I'd say the first 10 minutes because he was subbed out by that point. But like the shift that he first came in at, it was either attacking him. Really, it was just attacking him. I mean, the next shift they kind of attacked Ja'Kai Howard, who's a freshman who made a lot of freshman decisions, but they went after Pegues pretty hard, and it led to a lot of dribble penetration and some open threes that they just did not make. But and portending, thinking looking for the future, those shots are going to be coming from Houston and Duke and Ohio State and not fucking Vermont. So, could definitely see a world where Pegues' defense is kind of comes back to get him. And he's like it's one thing for Pettiford, who's small, but he's like this is his first game. It's Pegues like this is like a 50th, 60th game. Like he's 70th. I don't know. He's been there for a while. 80th. Who knows? Miles Kelly, his shooting is the thing we heard about the most, and it looks very good. He looks very good at shooting. Very, very fucking good at shooting, actually. Like, very. I thought to a point where I was like, what the fuck am I seeing in this first half? Because he was just jacking up this bullshit shots, like out of the rhythm shots. Like, just shots come there was one where he just kind of came up the court and didn't even have his feet set, just like took like a mid range, like a almost like a Paul George as shot, come up the court. It was an open mid range, but it was because it was a bad shot. Like, the defender did not think he would just stop and pop like that with no real like body balance until they shot. It just kind of off dribble, off kilter. But he shot it, and it was a bad shot. And he had a couple other bad shots, and they stopped being bad shots. They stopped being bad shots very fucking quickly. Here's the thing that works as far as history goes, history and shit like that. History only remembers the victors, man. No one's gonna ever remember Kamala Harris, who I voted for. So I'm not being funny here, but no one's gonna ever vote like she was the VP, the fucking questionable NPC VP of a eventually not very well liked president and Joe Biden. and she lost embarrassingly to. So she lost. She's not. Nobody's gonna remember that. Nobody's gonna remember the bad shots Miles Kelly takes because he's that fucking good at making bad shots. The missed ones, it's like Nick Young in his prime. Like, it's just like, oh, okay, well, yeah. Or J.R. Smith. It's like, okay, well, yeah. He's really fucking good. And he looked good coming off the actions that we ran. Keep in mind, we played a very small team, and screens set from a bigger team, which we have a lot of height and length. Screens set by us against a smaller team like that are going to be like doubly effective. Those screens are not going to look as good when you have like fucking, I think it's what, LJ Cryer and Jamal Sheed at Houston. They're gonna look that good against them. I'm telling you, they're gonna get around those screens. They're gonna be very elusive, so to speak. So yeah, don't expect those screens to create quite as much space as what they created today. But they were some very effective sets in this game. It did get kind of like, I'm feeling myself. I'm gonna take this shot at a certain point, which, I mean, it's Vermont. You gotta understand your opponent, I suppose. But like, for the most part, there was a lot of really good shots generated by this offense, schematically speaking. And it also kind of goes in part to your point guards. I mean, I don't think the point guards did a lot of like just off the cuff creation, like just taking the ball and breaking down the defense and finding the guy. I didn't think it was a lot of that, but I mean that's another thing to unlock potentially, hopefully. Because really, in you can't just run sets in the playoffs. Like, you really do need some off the cuff creation. This In college, you can get away with more than the NBA, but you can't just exclusively run sets. You got to have some off the cuff creation. You got to. And they had a lot of, I guess, if you wanted to do a little bit of portending, which this should have been self obvious. I guess this is my third. There's a lot of guys that can self create their shot. I'm using self in front of a lot of things here, but self creating basically means that you can take the ball and you can get your own shot without anybody passing it to you, anybody setting you up, screen, stuff like that. Well, I mean, screens can be part of it, but it's like, basically, do you need to be off the ball and receive the ball, or can you be on the ball and go get your own bucket? And a lot of guys here can do that. Off the top of my head, JP did it. Pettiford did it. Or guy Jakai, he did it to some degree, not very well, but he's still a work in progress offensively. I would say Chaney's probably more of an off-ball guy, but like, it's kind of the same with like Jalen Williams was an off-ball guy. Like, Jalen Williams is not somebody that should be like dribbling, creating his own shot, but you can like pass it to him in like the kind of high post. He can be like a two-dribble guy, get to his hook shot, get to his spinning shot, and that to me, in my book, is an off-ball guy. Like, you got to create for him, but he can get into his move quickly. In the same sense, I think Chaney's probably like a 2-3 dribble guy. Like, you get the ball to him, he gets post position, 1-2 spin. I guess that, but that's kind of like an off-ball guy, because that's like traditionally how, like, I think you would have evaluated a center or big in decades past. Like, that's not an on-ball guy. That's a guy you have to feed. You have to feed Chaney. But Broome created his own shot. CBM, Miles Kelly. I'm watching this Golden State game. Who else? I mean, we had at least like 7-8 guys to just get their own bucket. Like, it was fucking ridiculous. And I mean, against better teams like that can actually pressure you defensively. It probably won't be the same thing in that situation, but like, I can see a world where like you're going against like a Duke or whoever, and like just the wealth of guys who can self-create makes it where they can't even double, if everybody's on. You won't see everybody on like this against any other like team that's of Auburn's caliber. I guess maybe Alabama because their defense, but like, it's just not gonna happen against like the fucking supreme talents of the college basketball. I had another one I wanted to get down pack. I do think that like the double big lineup is like a kind of a compromise almost. Like, they need to get Dillon minutes, they need to get Broome minutes. Broome needs to play more perimeter because of his NBA dreams. I still don't think it's like the most efficient usage of Broome. Like, I don't think Broome for some reason, man, it's some reason I don't think Broome taking step back 3-pointers fucking 30 feet from the basket is like efficient basketball. I don't think a guy that has that shot form, or is like a 33% shooter last year or whatever the fuck he was, I don't think that's an effective usage of like anybody's time. But they got to do what they got to do because of the whole compromise of bringing him back. So I could see that lineup get used more often, but against serious teams that don't have like gigantic big too big setup, which most teams don't. This team didn't, but they overmatched this team in every possible way. Um, I can't see that happening. I can't against Duke. I can see it because Cooper Flag is like 6'10", and then Malak, whatever the fuck his name is, 7'1". I can see that happening. But against like majority of teams, against Alabama, for example, I don't think I would go against Alabama. Alabama has Grant and the fucker from Rutgers, right? Cliff Amori, or what the fuck his name is, Amori. Um, I mean, those are two tall guys, but like, I don't think I would have Broom defend Grant for an entire game. I know he did it at times in the Alabama game last year, but I wouldn't have him do like that's just not smart. That's not a smart way to use him. Broom should not be defending power forwards for the majority of a game. That just is not a. I mean, it won't be the majority because of the way that he gets his minutes get distributed ultimately. But for any extended period of time like that, that's just foul city, in my opinion. And you would just wear him out. The way the game of basketball works, even in college at this point, in the NBA especially, but I think even in college at this point, it still holds true. If you have a high level guy that can initiate from the perimeter, and you have a high level guy from the post, and one is much more athletic than the other, which Grant is much more athletic than John Broome, logic just dictates that the perimeter guy is going to weigh down the post guy first. Grant also, like, you can have Grant eat against a compact guy, and he can just use his like length to make it work. We've seen Grant do that. We've also seen him get beat up by Broome before. We've seen that as well. I'm not saying that hasn't happened, but the point is, you're trying to project this over the course of an entire game, or the majority of a game, or some significant part of a game. I would think that you'd want to avoid that personally. And I also don't know, like, I mean, like, Grant is the type of guy that you want to have someone who can, like, run with him, get in his bag, like his pocket, and try to pick the ball. That's how I would defend him. A post player that can, like, bang with him is physically stronger. That's not the way to defend him to me, because his advantage is his quickness. Like, he does some face-up, back to the basket, like, switching between stuff. He did some of that last year, at least. But it's not really done in the sense of, like, get, like, bang somebody down to the rim. Like, it's more so, like, I'm doing is to create, like, a face-up, like, mid-range. Like, the back to the basket shit, like, is not ever really made, like, the same way Broome does it, So, yeah, I think the double big lineup, I think it's going to be a compromise against teams that can compromise against and get those guys the minutes that they need to get them, but can't see that being like a full-time thing. I think it's going to be it's a 13-minute video. I probably got some more things banging about in my head, but I'll just have to sleep with them, I guess. To the recap, I guess, like, Miles Kelly, JP Pegues' defense, the double big lineup. Those are some of the main ones I can think of off the top of my head that I just talked about. It's late in the day. I got to get some fucking sleep, I'm sure, soon here, dude. But Auburn looks really fucking good. Depth looks fucking spectacular. I gotta admit, like, it looks better than I even thought it would. Some things defensively that concern me. There's a lot of guys that are either raw or, like, not that good defensively. Like, I don't think, like, Pegues can be good defensively. I think if he's the only bad defender to line up like he kind of was tonight, starting out, I don't think it'll matter a ton. But yeah, it's going to be some teams that split the shot of that, and you just gotta be watchful of your rotations. You can't have him Pegues or him and Petford on the court at the same time. Petford is small, and he's had some freshman mistakes even in this game, but he's going to have more. Probably, to me, you really can't have, like, Ja'Kai and Pettiford in against, like, serious teams too often. Pettiford, again, young guard, gonna get exploited, or at least targeted. He might not get exploited, but he's gonna target a shit ton. Ja'Kai is of that young ilk where, like, you gamble on everything because you're athletic and long. Pause. You fucking get everything as well. A lot of bad gambles by him. Cheney had a couple. A couple of, I mean, it's just with Auburn, you're gonna get it. A couple of like just like questionable like traps, questionable like help, because they help him recover. Like they help him recover like more actively than I think just about any other team does in college basketball, really. But like sometimes just asking too much out of the Nets guy to come get your guy, and some of that happened in this game. Quite a bit of that happened in this game actually, but they can really make it work. And the on-ball defense is just so fucking good, like, it almost didn't matter, like, the off-ball defense was questionable, I feel like, to say the very least, at times, but, like, the on-ball defense is just of such a fucking level that's, like, what am I gonna shit talk these guys? Like, they're beating these guys to the rim and, like, just snatching the ball out of their fucking hands, and, like, I mean, what are you gonna do? That's it, though, 14, 15 minutes, oof, gotta work in that time.